Hey guys, welcome back. So now with Dark Web quickly approaching, we've got to talk about the recent transformation that has taken place with Ben Reilly, with him becoming Chasm, and how this transformation has caused him to have a deep hatred for Peter Parker, which heavily fuels his motivations going into Dark Web. So let's get into it. But first, if you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe to get your spills every week, and don't forget to hit that bell up top so we can squat up in the comments for the first hour. Alright, so before we get into this origin story, first I want to take a few to talk about this video sponsor, eWin, who was kind enough to send me their Flash Excel size series chair, which I've been using for a few days now, and I'm really digging it for the comfort and the support, but I also really like how the white and black matches my setup, because my other chair, it was cool, but this one, it really gives the whole room a different vibe. Because for a while I've been going for the black and white setup, and this chair just fit into that theme perfectly. But one of the main things I like about this chair versus my old one is that this chair is quiet, which is what I need mainly when I'm recording, because my last chair, it would try to creep in the audio and get some shine every now and then. And I'll admit that it was pretty tough to deal with. But now it's like I can get that comfort and support without sounding like I'm about to say what it is, what's up in every video. But also I gotta say, when this chair arrived, which also was fairly quick, it came in a huge box, which was packed very well, because regardless of how this box looks, nothing inside was damaged. But after this, with opening it up and taking everything out, I was glad to see that for the most part, a lot of the pieces of this chair were already put together. So assembling it really wasn't that bad at all. And it helps that all the tools that you need to put it together are already included in the package. And in addition to that, it also comes with these white gloves for a safe assembly, which I think will fit most people, though on my hands, they were okay, but they were still kind of on the extra medium side. And just to give a bit of scale, the tip of my finger to the bottom of my palm, it's about the equivalent of the height of a Yeti Blue mic. But either way, I'm pretty sure you guys aren't checking out this chair for the gloves. But also feature-wise, this chair in comparison to my old one, they cost the same at MSRP. So at regular price, either one of them go for $4.99. But in comparison, this eWin Flash Excel size series chair supports up to 550 pounds, unlike my older chair that only supported 275 pounds. And I mean, it's not to say that I need 550 pounds of support, because I'm 6'1" and about 230 pounds, but with getting the additional quality and features for a chair that is set at the same MSRP, I would much prefer the more rigid chair, which once again is more quiet, while still including additional features like eWin's 4D armrest adjustment. So if any of you guys are in the market for a new chair, you can use my link down in the description below and head over to ewinracing.com and use their chair selection guide to find the right style, size, and fit for you. And on top of that, if you use my code DOPESPILL at checkout, you can take an extra 20% off and save some money for the holidays. And with that said, thanks again to eWin Racing for sponsoring this video. Alright, so to start this off, first we gotta get caught up with Ben Reilly, because the last time we talked about Ben, it was around the time of Devil's Reign and also the Death of Doctor Strange tie-in. And at the time for Ben, we'd seen that the Beyond Corporation had stepped to him and asked him to be the new Spider-Man, which like we'd seen, Ben did while also getting the blessing of Peter Parker, which is something that Ben also took even more serious once Peter was out of the picture for a while. But also with the Beyond Corporation, getting Ben Reilly to be Spider-Man officially, and I mean they bought the trademark and everything. But along with the Beyond Corporation bringing in Ben Reilly as Spider-Man, they had also brought back his love interest, Janine, who prior to this point was still incarcerated. But of course, with Beyond doing this, it wasn't all just in good faith. And we come to find out that the Beyond Corporation had some shady motives behind all this. Because after the events of Siege, the Beyond Corporation took advantage of a number of acquisitions, to where they then created two new divisions, with one of them being a very covert operation that was all about creating supervillains. And this division was also being led by the Assessor, and we had talked about him a while back in our talks on Miles Morales' Spider-Man, when the Assessor had kidnapped Miles and put him through a number of rigorous studies. But overall, the Assessor was creating villains through a shell company called Asset Analysis Incorporated. But aside from the Beyond Corporation having their supervillain division, that of course was very secret and under wraps, they also have a very public superhero division that's being led by Maxine Danger. But even the public superhero division is moving shady. because they were the ones who set up Peter and Ben to go against the UFOs, which was the incident that we seen that landed Peter in the hospital and also in a coma. But on top of this, they also put Ben up against Miles by telling him that there's a 79% chance that he'll run into an unauthorized Spider-Man who's more or less perpetrating because Beyond owns the Spider-Man copyright. And I mean, it wasn't so overt as them putting a hit on Miles, but rather at the time it was more like the Beyond Corporation telling Ben that he needs to make Miles change his name in order to protect the Beyond Corporation's intellectual property. And aside from this, we had the whole situation with Devil's Reign, with Ben getting worked by Taskmaster, which led him to then getting arrested, with the whole vigilante law that Wilson Fisk was putting down. But then after Devil's Reign, Ben had a run-in with Dr. Octopus, who at the time was going after the Beyond Corporation in order to get his hands on their technology. But during this run-in with Doc Ock, he had given Ben a hard drive that would show Ben the truth about why the Beyond Corporation chose him. Because all this time, they had been telling Ben that they chose him because of his determination and his strong will, but truth be told, that's not the reason at all. But the real reason that the Beyond Corporation chose Ben is because he was psychologically compromised, weak, and easy to control. And Otto doesn't just tell Ben this, but he gives him the drive. He shows him the proof. And really it's from here with Ben getting this information, like this is where things start to take a turn. And this causes Ben's suspicion of the Beyond Corporation to go through the roof. And it also causes him to question the intentions of Maxine Danger, who's not only his boss, but also head of the Beyond Corporation's hero division. So after Doc Ock dropped the truth on Ben and showed him the proof, Ben went back to his boss Maxine and he told her that Doc Ock got away and the drive that he stole had been destroyed in the process. But also with telling her this, he asked Maxine, why did the Beyond Corporation choose him? And in response, she gives Ben the default answer and she tells him it's because of his determination and his strong will. But really it's here for Ben when he starts to learn the truth about the Beyond Corporation and how their intentions are not as pure as he was led to believe. But now at this point, Maxine has her suspicions, which then cause her to listen in on Ben's conversations, and it's here where she discovers that Ben has figured it all out, and not just about why they picked him, but also the details about them setting up Peter Parker with the attack involving the UFOs. And for Maxine, with her hearing this is where she cut the conversation short. And with doing so, she took down Ben, tranquilized him, and from here she placed him in a process that would erase his memories in order to keep Ben in check and under her control. But with this process erasing Ben's memory, it didn't stop at just taking away the information that Ben had learned from Otto Octavius, which was the initial information that was intended to be removed, as well as everything that Ben had learned from the hard drive that Otto gave him. But also in the process of these memories being erased, Ben would start to experience spontaneous jumps throughout his memories, which was a sign of his memories destabilizing. And when Maxine had seen this, she told her scientists to stop pulling. But because of the fragile state of Ben's mind, it went into a state of collapse, causing Ben to lose all of his memories that he had inherited from Peter Parker. And with seeing this in a way, it almost reminds me of Otto losing his Peter Parker memories after Superior Spider-Man, with Otto making the whole Mephisto deal that wouldn't allow him to get those memories back or become a version of Peter Parker again. But on the other hand, for Ben, it hits a little different because for a long time he had associated a lot of those memories with his own identity. And for that reason, it really has me curious to see where this is going to go in the long run. But for Ben, with him leaving this procedure, he then goes to observation, where he's shown a number of pictures and he's asked to identify Spider-Man's rogue gallery, and it goes well for the most part. But just before he leaves, the doctor tells him that he's cleared for the field, but then she goes on to tell Ben, just like you said the other day, with great power there must also come. But when she says this, Ben can't finish the sentence, which right there is like the first sign of what's really going on in his head, or not going on in his head. But this had eventually led to Ben leaving the Beyond Corporation with Janine, who in her case this whole time they wouldn't let her leave the building. But on top of this, also around this time, Peter had recovered from his injuries and he had ended up running into a villain that was made by Maxine by the name of Queen Goblin, because Maxine was like, well, you know, I can do villains too. And in the case of Queen Goblin, that's a whole nother clone conspiracy in itself, with her being a clone of the late Dr. Ashley Kafka. But really that's one of those things that we'll probably go deeper into during Dark Web if need be. But then eventually Peter makes his way to Ben and he lets Ben know that Janine had told him everything about the whole situation. And Peter offers to help Ben, and Ben accepts. And from here, Peter goes with Ben first to the villain facility on Staten Island, but with Ben's condition and him missing Peter's memories, and amongst those memories, most notably the messages learned from Uncle Ben. And for Ben Reilly, while they're in this villain facility and running into all kind of wacky creatures, Ben has a number of moments where instead of seeing a face, he'll just see this chasm in place of it, which really just looked like a dark abyss that he would stare into to instead of actually seeing someone's face. So as a result, it kind of caused Ben Reilly to go off the rails, and with doing so more frequently, he would just act out of instinct. But while they were at the Beyond Corporation's villain facility, Ben hacked into their system via a control panel, only to then have the data scrambled and pulled, to where then he was contacted by Maxine Danger. And for Ben, this felt like he was catching Maxine red-handed, but she told him that this whole villain site, it's not her program, which is true, but nonetheless, she did indirectly benefit from the research that had been collected at this facility. But nonetheless, this led to Ben telling Maxine that he's coming for her and he wants answers. And with Ben's moral compass out of commission and him just acting off instinct, he went after Maxine, but with doing so, he's in a very impressionable state. And with Ben going to see Maxine to get answers, she already had a quote-unquote answer waiting for him. Because when Ben makes his way to the Beyond Corporation, the superhero division, because I feel like we gotta be a bit more specific now. But when Ben gets there, Maxine tells him, and via a remote holographic projection, because when things get dicey, she gets to moving. But when Ben gets there, she lets him know that she's prepared the memory device for him to use on Peter Parker, so that Ben can get all those memories back from the original source. And with how she presents this, she offers this opportunity to Ben in a way where she's trying to make it seem like Peter is greedy and trying to keep these memories to himself, and she plays on Ben's weaknesses by more or less telling him if Peter doesn't freely give up those memories, then Ben more or less has to ask himself if he truly has the courage to take them. And so not too long after this, Peter then catches up and makes his way to the Beyond Corporation superhero division. And when Peter gets there, Ben lets him know that he has this device and all Peter has to do is put it on so that Ben can finally get his memories back. But with hearing this, Peter's super skeptical about just putting this thing on his head, and rightfully so. But then it's here where Ben tells Peter that it's his voice that's in Ben's head. It's the voice that tells him his life in the second person, with Ben also being the second person. And now for Ben, that life is gone, and he doesn't believe that Peter has the right to keep that from him. And with Ben saying this, he goes off, which shows us once again that Maxine's manipulation has worked. And it's now brought Ben to the place to where he's going to try and take those memories back, because he's not asking Peter to do this. And when Ben goes off on Peter, he doesn't hold back, and he acts like this dude ain't just came out of a coma. And it almost feels like Ben's trying to put Peter back into another one, like he's throwing numerous shots to the head. But at the same time, I'm not gonna front, Peter returned a few, but through the course of this fight, they knocked each other down through numerous levels of this building, which had then taken the two of them to a lower level. And while falling in, Ben got the upper hand by deploying his spinneret to restrict Peter's movement. And with them landing in this lower level, it had been selected for molecular rearrangement. So while they're here, a ton of quantum shifting polymer goo is just pouring everywhere. But while they're here, Peter is able to get out of the spinneret because he had already discovered their unlock command, which was Janie 0414. So of course, when him and Ben have the same voice, it just works. But with Peter being free now, he then quickly destroys the memory device, crushing Ben's chance, or at least what he believes his only chance to get these memories back and be whole. So of course, when Ben sees this, he snaps. He yells, "I am nothing. I hate you." And then he just tackles Peter and he gets to work in the guy. And even still in this moment, Ben wants Peter to admit that this is all his fault. He wants to hear Peter say it. He wants Peter to take the blame for all this. But with the two of them being in the middle of this level that is literally getting broke down and reconstructed, the platform that the two of them are on loses integrity, and it causes Ben to fall down to the ground of this level as the quantum shifting polymer goo starts to close in. And when this happens, man, it's a very theatrical moment, man. Like, Peter's yelling for Ben to jump out of this because he knows that Ben can. But at this point, Ben, he's just given up because he believes that without these memories he's nothing. So he just lays there as he's covered with this goo and he tells Peter goodbye. So of course Peter then jumps in after him, but he isn't able to get to Ben in time, with the self-scrub initiator going unstable and causing a huge explosion, which on the outside for people that were passing by, they heard the rumblings and the explosion itself, but afterwards to them it had seemed like the building itself had only just gotten shorter, with minimal damage surrounding the area. But then it's after this where we then jump forward days later and we find Janine, Ben's girlfriend, who had made her way back to the site to see if she can find Ben because she just couldn't give up on him. And it's here where we find in her search when she makes her way back to the site, which is still covered in a ton of psycho-reactive goo, which is also spelling Ben's name out as she makes her way through looking for him and calling his name. But also while she's here, she sees her reflection in this goo. And when the reflection looks back, it's a bit of foreshadowing her part in the larger scope of the huge identity crisis that not only she has developing, but also a number of other players coming soon during Dark Web. But while she's here, she hears a rumbling behind her, to where then she turns around and she sees Ben's hand coming up out of the rubble. And after this, we then jump forward months later, where we find Ben and Janine laying low, and at this point, even with few words spoken, we can tell that Ben's mind is in a pretty crazy and fractured state, which at this point causes him to go by a completely different identity, because now he identifies as Chasm. And with seeing this, it really feels like this name fits him in the full definition, because not only is there this deep, gaping gorge or abyss in his mind where these memories used to be, but in addition to that, there's also been a profound change from who he was to who he's become, and as a result, now there's an even larger difference between him and Peter, because the two of them used to have way more similarities from a moral standpoint back when Ben had those memories from Peter's past. But now, with Ben Reilly becoming Chasm, going into Dark Web, this now sets us up to see where Ben's gonna go from here under this new identity, because he wants the memories back that Peter Parker still has, and he'll do anything to get them. And so now real quick, I want to give a special shout out to all the patrons. Thank you guys for all your support. And for anyone who's new here, who wants more information on how to support the channel, I got a link below to where you can go to patreon.com/dopespill. But that'll do it for this one, guys. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below, and we'll do it again on the next one. Alright, later.